Your family business is more than a source of income. It's part of who you are. And the question that keeps many successful families up at night isn't how to grow it, it's how to pass it on without losing what made it special in the first place. So today we're talking about how families business succession planning and how to be able to do it in a way that protects both your wealth and your relationships. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss this.
Welcome in. This is Legacy Beyond Wealth. I am Ben George with Rob Shelton at Axio Wealth Management. You find everything online at axiowm.com. So, Rob, you kind of set the stage for what this video is all about today, that succession planning. So let's kind of jump right into that and talk about the families you've worked with. I know you've worked with a lot of successful families. What makes this so emotional for people? And I think sometimes probably even a little explosive, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not really about money. It's about identity, control, and legacy. You know, when a business has been built by one generation's blood, sweat, tears, late nights, handing it off just isn't a financial decision. It's a deeply human one. And without a clear plan, family members can end up fighting for control or worse, feeling left out of something that they've really helped build. And I've seen wealth erode in my career, but even more tragic is I've seen relationships erode. And a solid succession plan makes sure that we're protecting both of those.
Yeah, that's the key and kind of what we want to talk about today a little bit more, because I think when you think succession planning, you think about, all right, I'm just transferring my ownership, transferring shares, and that's that. But there's a lot more to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the best plans focus on what happens to the family as much as what happens to the company. Because you're not just transferring assets here. You're transferring responsibility, vision, and trust. And, that's why I've often said we want to bring all of your financial voices into one collaborative conversation. Because when everyone is heard, the plan endures.
And that's what you want. You want that plan to endure. That's why you do this planning and try to have that legacy beyond wealth that you have for your family. So let's talk about some mistakes then that you see families made, because you've worked with a lot of different families. What's maybe the most common thing that you see people get wrong?
Yeah, they treat it as a one-time event, something that's handled with a few signatures and some legal documents. But true succession planning is really an ongoing process because families evolve, relationships shift, and tax laws change. And you just can't simply set it and forget about it. The family who gets it right when they do succession plan makes it part of their ongoing dialogue. They bring it up in their family meetings and they talk about expectations early on before any legal documents are even thought about or signed. And they create a space for honest communications that can sometimes be very uncomfortable. And it's not necessarily about being the easiest thing to discuss, but more about getting comfortable with discomfort part that makes the family legacy sustainable. So as soon as we can have people have those honest conversations and really get things out on the table, then we can really be more effective in creating that succession plan that would be the best fit for that family.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably why a lot of people don't get it right, is because it is an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of folks, right? You don't like talking about money, don't like talking about your death and kind of having to navigate some of that. So let's try to help people out a little bit in terms of some practical guidance we can provide them. So if anyone is looking to make this part of their ongoing discussion, right, their ongoing dialogue, what are some of the key elements they need to keep in mind?
Yeah, there's basically three, and there's three parts to break it down into. There's going to be clarity, communication, what I call codification. Clarity is about the future vision. Do you want the business to stay in the family, or does selling it to a third party make more sense? And making sure that, whatever you do, you're not leaving everyone guessing as to what is going to happen or take place. But there's this clarity that comes in with this vision. The next is communication. And you've got to bring everyone into that conversation, those who will inherit the business and those who won't. And that helps you to try to prevent resentment later on. I recently sat down with a business owner who multiple generational business that's been passed down from one family to the other. And eventually some family members just aren't a right fit to continue that on. And it's good to have those conversations up front and be able to help them understand how they're not necessarily going to be left behind because they're not involved in the business. And then once you have everyone aligned, we want that codification. We want to make sure we document it. And that's your legal framework, making sure that we get things like operating agreements, shareholder agreements, wills, trusts, all clearly written and make it easy to understand for everybody.
I like that. So clarity, communication, codification. So basically have a vision, discuss that vision and lock it in. I would imagine out of those three, maybe communication's the most difficult. It always kind of bogs us down, right?
It does. And here's the thing, transparency builds trust. And the families that have the ability to talk openly about roles and expectation tend to avoid those ugly lawsuits or even more taxing, those emotional blow-ups that could be able to happen later on. It's not about just removing the conflict. It's about being able to find a way through it and making sure that there aren't any surprises that pop up at the end.
Are you ready to unlock the freedom to live your best life? Schedule your no-cost 60-minute discovery meeting with our team today. During this session, we'll take the time to understand your family's story and financial dreams. Together, we'll craft a personalized roadmap designed to help you achieve your goals. Let's explore how we can unlock the freedom for you and your family to thrive. Just click the link in the description of today's show to get started.
All right, so those are some of the key elements. I know you having this experience and working with a lot of people, Rob, what do you see maybe as the biggest threat for someone that's maybe wondering, okay, how serious should I take this? How big of a deal is it? What is maybe the biggest threat you see to a successful transition?
Yeah, there's a few that are out there that come to mind. And when we've seen this unfortunately happen all too often in different businesses out there, whether it be taxes, divorce, competency, or just bad personal financial planning that's taken place. Taxes can eat into a business if it's not planned appropriately. A divorce can suddenly pull ownership outside of the family. And if inheritors aren't prepared to manage the company, it can crumble under their leadership. So the goal is to anticipate these risks before it becomes a reality. And that's why I always say, let's make sure every dollar and every decision count with purposeful planning. It's not just about minimizing taxes, but maximizing that peace of mind.
Always about maximizing that peace of mind. That's well said. I know that's something we talk about here quite a bit. And, kind of tying this back into the overall theme of the podcast, that legacy beyond wealth. I know you always say, you're trying to help people unlock that freedom to live a life of significance. That's the goal for everything you do. So how does this fit into it when you're talking about succession?
Yeah, when you think about legacy, it's much more than just assets. It's about alignment. And a great succession plan doesn't just transfer the wealth, it transfers the wisdom. And it keeps the family values alive through structure and conversation. So, if you imagine waking up a few years from now and your family meetings aren't tense, your leadership team knows exactly the path forward and your legacy is protected. And that's really what it feels like when your plan is not just on paper, but it's alive in your family culture that's out there. So if you're listening today and you run a family business, here's the takeaway, what I would say: start early, talk often, and write it down. Because succession isn't just about who gets the keys, but it's about ensuring your family never lose sight of what you built and why you built it in the first place.
Yeah, it's about having that vision, making it happen, and communicating that effectively. And again, it helps to have someone on your side, like the team at Axio Wealth Management, to help guide you through this. It's not an easy process, right? That's why a lot of people get it wrong. Maybe don't take it as serious as they need, and they need that assistance. And that's what Axio can provide. If you want to discover how Axio's tailored collaboration can help elevate your financial future, help you with the succession planning, and much, much more, get in touch at axiowm.com. But again, Rob, this is not easy to do on your own, right? It's okay to have help doing this.
I think it's something that's vital. When you think about anything you do for the first time, it's nice to have a coach or a mentor that helps you through that. Usually when I try to do things on my own for the very first time and I don't have that, it's when I make the biggest mistakes. This is one item that you don't want to be making mistakes in.
All right. So if this maybe hits close to home, please reach out. But we appreciate you watching the video. Please subscribe if you haven't done that already. Like the video. Leave a comment if you have a question for Rob. We'll check that out as well. But thanks for being here on Legacy Beyond Wealth. And Rob, thanks as always.
Thank you.